Yo, what's up guys? It's Topics here, and we are back for another tips video. This time, Halls of Atonement. I'm at a plus 17 here, and I have the top 7 tips for Halls of Atonement for you. Been getting very good feedback with these videos, so without further ado, let's get into it so we can keep this video as short as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this. So, number 1 tip, and I don't even know if this is a tip, it's almost a requirement, as I grab this Hound Master and go into the first pull, always bring a DK for this dungeon. And by always, I mean that in every literal sense of the term. Obviously in lower keys, probably get away with it, but as for these tips videos, focusing more on higher keys, you just definitely need a DK. These Hounds Masters, this one, for example, will be sitting out here, casting and shooting people. And as you pull the other ones in the dungeons, the same things happen. They are a fixed mob, and they don't move. Even if you kick them, they don't even really move. They're just like a fixed archer-type mob that has a cast every 20 seconds or whatever. So without a DK, you just have these Hounds Masters sitting in the middle of nowhere casting on people. Now, of course, you can use things like Mage Knock, like Blast Wave. Hunter also has like a bursting shot. Druid can Typhoon. But it's really awkward to have your DPS running behind the Hounds Masters and knocking them in when they could end up, butt pulling something else when they do that. It's a lot easier to have your DK's grip. So, yeah, tip number 1, kind of weird. More so of like a pre-key requirement to bring a DK as much as you possibly can to this dungeon. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of why DKs are so good in M+ right now, is there's just a lot of mobs that need to be gripped, and no other classes really have a great way of handling that. So, all right, tip number 2. Tip number 2 involves this second shard of Halkias on the left side of the map. This used to have 4 casters by it, okay? It used to have 2 collectors and 2 obliterators. They've changed it to 1 collector and 2 obliterators. However, that is still a lot of casters. These are chain casters. They're going to cast the entire time, and this collector is going to cast not quite as frequent, but all 3 of them need to be kicked or stopped. And whenever you have 3 kicks in a pull, it's just an extremely dangerous pull without lust, which you're not going to lust this pull because it's already a couple minutes in the dungeon. You want to lust the first pull. And unless you're in a coordinated 5 stack with Discord communications, you're just not going to be managing 3 kicks on a dangerous mob like the shard. So my second tip is to never pull these obliterators with the shard. Now I've seen different routes where you go over here and grab a Hounds Master and you don't even do these obliterators. You can actually hug this wall over here and pull the shard and the collector over this way, and they'll run to you over here without even aggroing these. Or as I'm doing right here, which is probably the safest, is you just pull in these casters with some trash beforehand right here and play this, and then you can play the shard after. But yeah, I would just highly suggest never pulling these 2 obliterator casters with the shard over there. You will likely wipe more than you will succeed on that pull. All right, tip number 3. Tip number 3 is to engage these 3 collectors by first boss before first boss spawns. You can pull them in different times of the dungeon. I'm doing it kind of on my way as I traverse to the other side of the first area. I've also seen people clear all the shards, hurry up back to first boss, and then pull these. But what happens if Halkias reaches 100% and spawns before you engage these collectors is they'll actually disappear. And these collectors are really free and easy count. They give you a lot of percentages, and they're very easy mobs. They don't do anything but a channeled cast like every 20 seconds or something like that. So other than that, they're basically complete target dummies. So as you can see, I'm pulling them in here with this metal pack. But again, like I said, you can pull them in at different points of the dungeon. The point is that you need to engage these before this boss fully spawns. Otherwise, they'll disappear and you'll lose this free target dummy count. Alright, tip number 4 is to pull in as much funnel and trash with boss as you can. So ignore the slasher. That was butt pulled by the healer somehow. But basically what I'm doing here is I was going to be pulling these groundskeepers in with boss. I've also seen people pull this 2-pack with one caster into boss. You want to be pulling funnel on bosses in this dungeon. The timer is very tight. There's a high trash requirement even after the nerf. And so pulling funnel into boss for your funnel classes and just for timer's sake is necessary. I would say even the second boss, you should be pulling in some ads before you run up the stairs to that second boss. Obviously, making sure the slashers are turned to stone so you can pass by them. But yeah, just pull in funnel with bosses in this dungeon anytime there's an opportunity, basically. Okay. Tip number 5. As you see, I'm pulling these 2 ads for funnel into second boss. These 2 ads are coming up here. Is basically just about second boss movement and positioning. So let me rewind here a little bit. So first of all, this blood puddle, you never want to do what my team just did here. This blood puddle gets casted on someone, not the tank, but it'll get casted on like a DPS or a healer, depending on where they're standing. And what happens if you fill the middle of the room with these blood puddles is you end up having to like position the boss on the outside of the room, which, you know, when the boss does the stone call and summons 3 ads from this side and 3 ads from this side, it's going to be very hard to gather them if you have to position the boss on the outside of the room. So for these blood puddles, right before you see the blood torrent cast come out, which is this one right here, you should kind of spread to the edge of the room just for a brief second, because then you'll bait the blood puddles to the edge of the room, thus keeping the middle of the room clear so that you can easily gather the ads when they spawn. Um, Now the boss does the stone call, and obviously this is just the first blood puddle, so we still have a lot of room. And the other part of this tip is basically these stone fiends. So as a warrior, you can AoE kick. As you see them run in a second here, they start doing this cast. Once they do these casts, you can AoE kick, and they'll further run in. I don't have it right here, so I'll probably use it next time. But just make sure you're using AoE kick on all these ads when the casts go off. These casts going off isn't a big deal because they're all targeted on the tank. What is more of a big deal is making sure you kill these ads in a staggered fashion, because they do explode when they're killed. But so if you kill all of them together, you're probably gonna wipe. As you see, look how big of a chunk we took from just killing one ad. Um, so yeah, we ended up killing them staggered. Like there's still one left, so we didn't do too bad. But if all 6 of them die at the same time, like exactly, you're probably gonna wipe. So those are kind of my 3 tips here. You see Blood Torrent coming out, which is nice because it was targeted on the Boomy over here. And because they were kind of standing out here, it got baited over here, which is nice. And that's kind of what you want to do. You want to spread for a second before the blood torrent so that the blood puddles get baited on the outside, and you keep the middle clear to fight and grip the ads in. Okay. Um, Tip number 6 is kind of a two-parter. It's basically about spell reflect usage and positioning of the third boss and the mini boss. So, um, we have some trash we pulled in here to the third boss, which it's okay if your team kicks the collector, or if there's obliterator in with this pull, you can kick the obliterator. As a prot warrior specifically, your team should never be kicking the third boss, and honestly, as any tank in general. The cast that this third boss does here, Anima Bolt, it does absolutely nothing to the tank. You can get railed with multiple of these in a row. It will not do anything. So I would just tell your team before the key, or if you're in Discord as you're pulling the boss, to not kick the Anima Bolt from the boss, because you can either spell reflect it, or your team can just ignore it. Because if you're pulling trash on the boss, you want them kicking the trash and not the boss. As for positioning, I try and position the boss either in the middle of all the canisters at the beginning of the fight, or I start moving the boss over to the canisters that are still up towards the end of the fight, so that my melee DPS can get as much uptime on the boss while also kiting their ad into the canister. Now, as we move on to the mini boss here, you need to be playing the mini boss in the middle of these ads. I know some tanks tend to take the mini boss around the corner and like line of sight these ads for some reason. That is very bad because there are a lot of funnel classes this season that can benefit greatly from having these ads around the mini boss. They're going to be getting large funnel value from hitting these ads and then, funnel single targeting into this mini boss. So just make sure you position the mini boss here. And also, you do not want to lust this mini boss until the first heal has gone off. That first heal is this display of power that it casts as soon as you pull him. After that display of power is done, then you should lust, because then you're going to get more utilization of actual meaningful damage on the mini boss while lust is up. We lusted before that cast finished, which, is not ideal. But yeah, tell your team to hold lust until after that first mini boss heal is done, and then send it. Okay, tip number 7, last tip, is about soaking the Ritual of Woe on the last boss. Now, this will put up like 4 streams to each of these statues. If one of the streams is not soaked, extremely dangerous. So you want someone soaking at least one of these streams, so 4 players have to soak. However, as a tank, you should be trying to soak 2 of them. Now, for example, you see where this statue is and this statue is? If I get close enough to the boss right here, it will actually soak both of these. That means only 2 other players have the other 2 soaks, meaning 2 of the players of your team don't even have any soak, and they're not taking any damage, because you do take damage when you soak these. So I'll kind of try and show you this. So I get as close to the boss as possible in an attempt to soak both of these, and as you can see, it worked, because only 2 other players have the other 2 soaks, which would be the player soaking this one and the player soaking this one, but I'm actively soaking this one and this one right here. So as a tank, you always want to soak 2 of these, and it's just going to reduce the amount of players in your group taking damage. So that's it for top 7 Halls of Atonement tips for the War Within Season 3 Mythic Plus. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and this helped you a lot. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. I do things like this all the time, including posting commentaries and VODs of my gameplay and just general WoW discussion. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.
Shout out to all the Patreon members. It's because of your support that I'm able to continue making Protection Warrior and World of Warcraft content. Thank you.